And that was on repeat yet again. Sorry about that. Anyway, less than smooth start to the show. Must remember to turn that vegging thing off. Anyway, hello and welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk, here in Scotland, the capital of the UK, capital of Europe, capital of the world, capital of the solar system, capital of the galaxy and the universe and everything in it, including cats and shrews. I hope everybody... I get worse and worse at this. I'm going to have to stop doing that because it's just silly. Anyway, I hope everybody has had a great rest of their week after Wednesday night show for Songwriting Simplified. And I hope everyone has had a great weekend. I have had a fantastic weekend. It's been very, very chilled and relaxed, which is kind of what I have needed of late. So I'm very happy about that. And Ambient Dave says, hello Scotland, how are you? Scotland is doing very well, especially in the rugby. We beat France. Coming from behind. We were a long way behind in the first half of that match, and we came back to win it with some phenomenal rugby. So yeah, so Saturday was a day filled with lots of drama and excitement and very satisfying. So yeah, so Scotland is doing well in the rugby and beating one of the best teams in the world, which is cool. Anyway, let's go see who is here. Ambient Dave is loving the jazz club vibe. Yes, that's kind of where I grew up. I grew up in jazz clubs. So, but you'll notice we have weird, multicolored, cosmic lighting going on at the back. Basically, I got this on Friday, actually, Friday evening. And it's basically a bulb that you just plug into a normal lamp. And when you turn it on, the bulb rotates, and it's got some colored filaments inside it. And so this is what you get. And it's just sat there. It's got like, it's pretty cool, actually. I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically got some crazy shapes on the glass of the bulb. It's all kind of dimpled and crazily shaped. And then those little shapes in the glass are all different colors, a little bit like stained glass. And then it spins. So it's really very, very cool. And I thought it would make an interesting addition to the look of the studio, especially for doing these shows. I thought it would be pretty cool. All right, so let's go up and see who's here first. And I think we have Billy and Christina fairly close behind each other, who were first in the door, followed by Ron Figura, who says he's got some questions, but he's going to save them for the Louisiana meetup, which I will be attending because it's right after the show. I may be a wee bit late because I'll want to go and get some more drinks and that kind of thing. Excuse me. But yes, I will be there for that. Because it's Billy's first Studio One meetup as a Studio One captain. Congratulations, Billy, on your appointment to being a Studio One captain, which is very, very cool, which basically means he is a host of a Studio One meetup. Like me, I've been hosting the UK one for, since they first started. And we first of all started with in-person meetings, and I hosted one down in London, then I travelled back to Scotland, and I hosted one in Edinburgh, and I hosted one in Glasgow. And so I was basically going to be travelling around the UK hosting Studio One meetups. And then, of course, lockdown happened with COVID-19, and so everything went to Zoom. And basically, we consolidated all of those in-person meetups into one for the Zoom meetup, which is pretty cool. So I've been running that ever since 2020. In fact, I've been running Studio One meetup since 2019, the back end of 2019. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, congratulations, Billy, on that. So we got Kevin from Kevin's Guitar Stories. We got Mike Rowell. We got Christina, who says that she is totally committed, which is awesome. Thank you very much. And we got Cal Traduziak, who says we should all be committed, and there is definitely some truth in that. And we've got Semok Eng as well, and we've got Ambient Dave, excuse me, who is off on Monday, so he can join for a bit. That's awesome, Dave. I'm glad you're here. And we have got Just Bob, and we have got Mike Ralph. Nope, Mike Ralph. I've already mentioned you. Sorry. We got John Lake, and we got Boris. Dear God. Boris Dancy. I spinnerized your name there. And we've got Radio Talk Frumpet, of course. That is Keith. And we got Don Oliver. And who else do we have? Good grief. We got loads of people here, which is great. We got Tony. And we got Shorty Beard, and we got Holly Bob, and we got Rich Cresswell, of course, who is going DISCO, absolutely. And of course, as I said, we got Billy here as well. And we got Gardner99, who has just popped in as well, which is great. Boris says I'm black and American, which is cool. I'm actually of Israeli descent. And from the Scottish Highlands originally. But I have lived in most parts of the UK. I've lived in England, I've lived in Scotland, I lived for a very, very brief period in Wales, in Swansea. Good grief, we got 23 people here already. This is amazing. Alright, so let's get to it. This show, for those of you that don't know, for you who are watching for the very first time, you are very welcome. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for joining the community here. Please subscribe so that you can join the chat, because the chat is in subscriber mode only. So if you want to ask your Studio One questions, then you got to subscribe. So please do that. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, give it 5 minutes, and you can ask your question. That is what this show is all about. It is all about asking your questions about Studio One, about recording, mixing, mastering, and that kind of thing. That's what this show is for. If you've got songwriting or arranging questions or questions about composing and that kind of thing, we have another show for that, which is on a Wednesday at the same time. And that is called Songwriting Simplified. We break down various topics and issues to do with songwriting, arranging, and composing, and we throw in some music theory there as well. So if you've got music theory questions, Wednesday is the show for that as well. So if you want to ask a question, please do start by typing at Jonny Lipsham Studios and then ask your question. I know it does rob you of your 200 characters a wee bit to do that, but it enables me to pick out your question from the chat. If you need to make a follow-up because you don't have enough characters left, then please do that. It's fine. I don't mind you carrying it over a couple of posts. It's not a big drama. And the folks here in the chat are awesome. They are some of the best, finest people on the planet that you will find here. Everyone that is blue with a blue wrench are my awesome moderator team, and they are very carefully hand-selected and vetted for being extremely outstanding people. So I'm glad they are here. Keith Salisbury is here. Welcome, Keith. Glad you're here. And Tim Talks Audio is here. He says video editing isn't as fun as being here. Thank you, Tim. Yes, I'm not a big fan of video editing, but it is one of those things we have to do. Mike Johnson is here as well, which is great. So questions, get your questions into the chat. Because on Wednesday's show, I'm going to break down a piece that I wrote recently called Aya's Lullaby. And I'm going to break down kind of what I did and how I got that piece made. It's basically a binary form piece. And it's for piano with some, with like a wee chamber orchestra as well. So I want to break that down there rather than doing it tonight for this show, although it is very tempting to do it for this show because I did it all in Studio One. But really it's more to do with the arranging aspect of it that I want to break down so you guys can get some ideas of how you can make kind of nice orchestral arrangements of your songs. And to realize actually it's not very complicated. It really isn't. I mean, essentially the way I did it was I used a method called additive composing or additive arranging, which is basically where you loop a section and then you just add different things to it. It's not my normal method for writing. Normally all my composing is done up here, and then I basically just play what is in my head into Studio One, and that's it. So it's a simple process. Not everybody can do that though, so I do like to change it up from time to time, and so that's what I did for that piece, was basically just use this additive process, basically adding different layers of different sounds until I ended up with something which was way cooler than how it started. It just started out as a thing for piano. All right, Tony has a question at 5:04. Now, I have UK timestamps, so I'm going to have a hard job finding that, which is why it's so important for you to put the at Jonny Lipsham Studios, which you did. You said, can you turn off all the lights so we can see what it looks like? You want me to turn off the wee light at the back? I can turn off the light at the back. Yeah, sure. And you'll just see basically what it's normally like. I have to find the button for the damn thing. So, that's what it normally looks like at the back of my studio. So that's it without the light. And that's it with it back on again. But I do have the overhead light off as well, so I can put that on as well. And this is what you normally see. I normally have this light above my head normally on, but tonight I decided because it would make everything show up a bit easier that I turned it off. So I'm going to stick with that. And also, it means that my my specialist lighting for video show up a bit better. But let's get Studio One questions going, guys. Let's see. Eris monitor. Here we go. Semok N says Eris monitors, as I know, are Class AB amplification. But I did not see a heat sink. They don't overheat easy. No, I've had mine since 2017. And they have been on every single day for all of those years. They very rarely get switched off. Last thing at night, everything gets shut down in this studio. So from that point of view, nothing really gets the chance to overheat. I know some people, they leave everything powered on indefinitely. I don't think that's a very healthy thing to do for a variety of reasons. Number one, it's not healthy for your bank balance because it means your electricity bill is going to be sky high. Number two, I personally don't think it's a good thing environmentally because you're consuming a lot of power for nothing. You know, especially at night when you're in bed sleeping, you're not in your studio doing anything. So why have you got your gear powered on? It's just a waste. So that's kind of the two main reasons why I shut everything down. And also it gives a chance for everything, including the ambient temperature in the room, to cool down, because when I've got all this gear on, the ambient temperature of the room does go up. So it's important to, you know, allow everything to cool, especially gear, especially computers. Here's the thing. If your computer is on indefinitely and you never power it down, you never power cycle it, you never shut it off, you are building up cache files in your computer and temp files. And those never get swept away. They never get blown away. And so they just build up and build up and build up, and you have all of that stuff just sat in RAM, and it bogs down your computer essentially, and it makes it work less efficiently than it could. And ultimately your fans are spinning all the time. Eventually those motors are just going to burn out. So it's not great all round. Now, I know that there are some people who have a lot of expertise in computers, and they say actually power cycling your computer is actually bad for it, shutting it down and then starting it up again, because when you start it up, it sends a big spike of power through the computer. And there's a lot of people that say that's not a good thing to do, so leave your computer on all the time. I don't agree with that. I'm not an IT specialist. Well, I am, but I'm also not. You know, I'm not a specialist when it comes to computer hardware. I'm not qualified. But what I do know from my own actual usage experience, that when I do shut my computer down and it gets shut down overnight when I'm not using it, and then I start it up again in the morning, it actually works better. And actually, I've had maybe 3-4 computers in the last 10 years. And all of those have worked great. Now, my first computer is in the garage. It basically, I can't upgrade it to Windows 10. I have a Vista computer that I also cannot upgrade to Windows 10. So those two computers are done. And then my third computer, which is the one before the one I have now, well, the hard drive exploded on that one. And it did some damage to the power supply on its way. So that computer is also done. But this one here has been great. I've had it for 3 years and it's in great nick. But to go back to your original question, which was about the Eris speakers. The Eris speakers are great. They are powered. But I would recommend not leaving them on all the time. When you're not using them, when you know you're going to be out of your studio or out of the room, and you're going to be away for quite a long time, maybe several hours, or you're going to be asleep in bed, turn them off. Give them a chance to cool down. And then, it really doesn't take very long to power things up these days. Maybe, 5, 6, 7 years ago, powering up, booting up your computer took a wee bit of time, right? And getting things all loaded up took a wee bit of time. Switching every device on takes a wee bit of time. But these days, that's not the case. Computers boot up really quickly. My mixer is a Studio Live Series 3 32SC, and it takes a matter of 15 seconds to boot up, and it's ready to go. Everything else in here takes a matter of a few seconds to boot up. My computer boots up in under a minute and a half. Now, some people say, hey, a 90-second boot cycle on your computer, that's a long time. For me, having grown up with computers like ZX Spectrums and Atari STs and the very first PCs and the very first Macs, 90 seconds is not long. I really don't mind. I really don't mind waiting for things to do their thing, because I think it's better all round. But that's a good question. Tony says, no, the main room lights. I want to see the disco light by itself. Well, here's the thing. If I turn off my LED lights, I might not be able to get them back on. But we can try it. Yep, it's not going to turn back on. Hang on a second. Oh, bollocks. I just dropped a photo. Oops. Alright, so the LEDs are back on now. So there you go. You saw it for a wee bit. Yeah, Mike says his Erises don't overheat either. Boris is asking, what are some of the new updates? Some of the new updates for Studio One. Well, it depends what you're talking about. You're talking about updating from 6.2 to 6.2.1, because 6.2.1 is essentially just a maintenance update. It just fixes a few things that were broken in 6.2. But if you're talking about 6.2 and maybe you're not on 6.2 yet, I have a fantastic video that is right here on this channel that you can watch at your leisure, which will give you a very good overview of, I think, which are the 5 kind of most important, certainly the most important to me, features of Studio One 6.2. So it is well worth going to check that video out. But yes, Studio One 6.2.1 was just a wee maintenance release to fix a few things. So yeah, that's pretty much it. See, Ambient Dave says, I have UPS backup system that's low power, but everything else closed in my room. Yeah, I've heard good things about backup systems like that, where you can actually set your entire studio down into a low kind of power profile that basically means it's easy to boot everything up. Now, if you live in a part of the world where power may be kind of a wee bit flaky, like in the United States, power is definitely a wee bit flaky. Not like it is here in the UK, where we have, you know, proper grounding and earthing and everything like that built into our system. But in the United States, it's a wee bit flaky, so you can get dirty power quite easily. Here in the UK, you don't. It just doesn't really happen. So, with that in mind, power conditioners are a really good thing, especially if you live in parts of the United States where you are prone to severe weather. So, things like thunderstorms, where you get a lot of positive charged lightning. Positive charged lightning strikes can actually do a heck of a lot of damage. And if you get power going through your system, it can fry pretty much all of your gear. Now, here in the UK, there are protections built in. And, you know, we do get severe thunderstorms here as well. But they don't tend to do a lot in the way of damage to our electric network. Even if a substation is taken out by a lightning strike, and that does happen, we get a power cut. And it'll take a few hours for electrical engineers to go and fix that. But in the meantime, all of my gear is fine. I don't have to have a power conditioner. I know that if everything gets shut down, it's okay. Because we've got protections built into our system. But, you know, get yourself a power conditioner if you are in the United States. I think a power conditioner is probably an essential for you guys. For here, not so much. I've never had a power conditioner, never needed one. However, there are some advantages other than the fact that it does protect all of your gear, which is great. I do have surge protectors just in case there are power surges, which does happen from time to time. They are really rare, particularly in Scotland. They are particularly rare. So I do have surge protectors, and they are self-sacrificial. They will just destroy themselves to protect my gear, and they're cheap to replace. It's fine. It's not a big deal. But yeah, power conditioner, you can plug all of your gear into a power conditioner, and it's just a case of flicking one switch to turn everything off and turn everything back on again. So that's an advantage of a power conditioner as well. And I think most studios I know of in the United States, they have power conditioners. Let's go back up and see what it was with that. Tony says, I read somewhere that turning gear on and off was more traumatic for the gear than leaving it on. Yeah, there are some people that say that. But there is equally a school of thought that says you should turn your gear off. I think, you know, the trauma that you get is only if you're turning your gear off and then immediately turning it back on again. Like if the power cycle is very short, yeah, I think you could probably long term do some damage to your gear. But I think there is, for me, I think the benefits of shutting down all of my gear at night when I'm not using the gear outweighs, you know, the inconvenience of having to turn everything on again. Because A, I'm saving on my electricity bill. B, there is an environmental saving as well. And those are my priorities, really. Lower electricity bill and better environmental carbon footprint and all of that. Simog says, it's because I heard Class A heat a lot, B not so much, and AB is a mix. Also monitors like MSP5 or 7 by Yamaha are, as I know, Class AB, and they have heat sinks. Okay, yeah. I don't know the schematics of the speakers specifically, but all I can say is in my experience of actually using them every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the last, 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, the last 6 years of everyday continuous use in a professional capacity, they don't overheat. Never had them overheat. So I think that is a concern that you could probably remove from your mind. I mean, Dave says, amazing how people don't clean their computer for dust. Yes, that's very true. And I will admit myself, I'm not necessarily the best at keeping on top of dust in the vents from my computer. And I should do better than that. I really should. I should make sure that at least once a week I shut the computer down and I give it a darn good clean for dust. That's definitely something that I should do better at, and I would recommend that everybody does that as well, so that you can keep your gear in the highest working condition. But that's a good point. Tony says, my computer is a Mac Mini, so no vents to clean, can't even open it. Yeah, if you've got a Mac Mini and it's pretty much a completely sealed box, the best thing you can do is just make sure you keep the box itself clean, and any of the USB and TRS ports and all of those ports that are on the back of it, make sure they are kept dust free as well, as much as you possibly can, because dust can actually get inside your ports. Even if there's no vents or anything like that to clean, then yeah, keep that part of it clean. Let's see. Okay. Ambient day, my Windows PC, I invest in a dedicated blower, no moisture, safer than cheaper than compressed air. Yes, there are blowers that you can get, for sure. Tony says, Johnny is so nice to do that, I will never ask him to waste his time. Tony, don't be daft. It was fine. You wanted to see what it was like without the lights on, and it's fine. It's cool. It's a nice little gimmick. Let's see, what else do we have here? Presonus ACP88 is based on other gear or unique sound. It's discontinued, but I'm curious. Oh, the ACP88 is ancient. Ancient. It's not based on other gear. It's actually unique, uniquely invented by Jim Odom. That's how old that piece of gear is. The DP, forget what the very first product was that Jim made, which is like a digital controller for analog compressors, and he won a patent for it, which is pretty cool. But yeah, the ACP88 is absolutely ancient. I don't even well, it is definitely discontinued. I'm gonna see if I can find the discontinued products list, and I'm going to see that's not what I wanted to do. Bear with me a second, folks. I'm trying to see if I can figure out how I can find out. There is still a product page for it. It's just a question of finding it. I'm not sure I can find it from here. It looks like I took it away. Although, hang on just a minute. I thought we still had the discontinued page. Don't think we got rid of it. If we did, I can't find it. Is it down the bottom? Ah, there it is. Found it. All right. Here we go. Here's the discontinued product list. And here's the ACP88. It's basically a classic analog dynamics processing unit. And it was incredibly popular. Basically, it was like a multiband compressor and gate and limiter. But yeah, this is actually unique to PreSonus. It's not based on any other gear. It's not based on any other analog gear. This is like unique to PreSonus. So yeah, if you want to find out about discontinued products, let me go back to the main page. Let's close that. If you go down to the bottom of PreSonus.com and you click on discontinued products, and then this opens up and you can see all of these ancient products that are here. And some of them not so ancient, some of them are relatively recently discontinued. As you can see here, the Studio Live 16, which is the Blue Studio Live, all the Blue Studio Live mixers. There's the Studio Live 24. They are discontinued as well. And you'll find a whole bunch of other things in here as well. You'll find some very, very old things in here, like the old Virtual Studio Live, which was basically for the audio box. Which audio boxes were they? I have to try and remember. These ones. These, if you had like something like the 1818 VSL, the VSL basically stood for Virtual Studio Live. So it basically had a Virtual Studio Live mixer built in via software into the audio box. So that meant you had access to, let's go look at this. You had access to EQs, compressors, limiters, gates, and the fat channel from the Studio Live mixers in an audio box. Unfortunately, this got discontinued, and the reason why it got discontinued is because Apple basically made a significant change to Mac OS X, which broke it. Fundamentally broke how it worked, and it would not work again on a Mac. So in order to be fair to everybody, it was decided to discontinue it for Mac and for Windows, because even though it still worked on Windows, not really very fair to Mac users if Windows users can still continue to benefit from it, but Mac users couldn't. So we mothballed it for both. So there you go. Billy says he has a couple of Furmans. Yep. And Rich agrees. UK Power is very stable. Boris says, I'm still waiting for the Mac fix for interface control keyboard shortcut. Yeah, that is a Mac issue. I will check on the status of that and find out what's going on with that. It might require a firmware update for your device. Let's see. Secret Squirrel is here. Hello, mate. Good to see you. And he says, considering an Expressive E Osmos, there are a ton of live play videos, but there are questions in communities on tracking its MIDI. Why might its MPE be complicated to record? MPE in general is quite complicated to record, but there are some devices like the Rolly C board, which whilst they are quite complex to record, they're not too bad, and they are now fully supported in Studio One. So MPE with something like the C board is fully supported in Studio One. So all of that MIDI automation and stuff like that that you get with the MPE is supported inside of Studio One. However, there are some devices where they have an extra layer of MPE, which is really, really difficult to control, difficult to work with in some DAWs. I'm not sure that they test their devices with Studio One, so it may just be that Studio One is not a software that particular keyboard supports. There are some MPE devices that don't support Studio One. There are some that don't even support Cubase. I know this because a friend of mine just bought himself a new particular, I forget the brand of it, but a new particular MPE keyboard. He is a Cubase fanatic. I have known him for many, many years. I have known him for 30 years, and he is a Cubase fanatic. I am an ex-Cubase fanatic, but he remains so, and his keyboard does not work in Cubase. And he reported it to Steinberg, and Steinberg basically said that device is not supported by the manufacturer. So sometimes it is just one of those things. But I mean, I don't have an MPE device, so I don't know a whole lot about it. So I'm not really going to be the best person to give you a very detailed and very accurate answer to that. So, you know, I'm fully willing to say I don't know to that. Sorry about that. Let's see. Billy says, I read today someone is buying Avid. Well, there are rumors to this effect that Avid may well be being sold to somebody, some unknown, unnamed, as yet unnamed investor. Other than that, there's not really a whole lot of detail as to who the investor is, or the investment company, who it is. There are some rumors that it might be the same company that bought Native Instruments and Brainworks and all of that and created Soundwise, and then that's all just become Native Instruments now. So it is entirely possible that the investor group that are behind Native Instruments are the group that may have bought Avid, in which case they will have bought not only Pro Tools but all of the Avid ecosystem and everything else. So if that is true, that would be pretty big news, because now you would have, you know, Native Instruments and all of their products and the Pro Tools Avid ecosystem coming together. That would be pretty massive. But it's not confirmed. All we know is that there are some potential buyers on the horizon for Avid. So Avid, it looks like, are going to end up no longer being an independent company. And I suspect that we will know sooner than later who it is that is going to be the acquiring entity. So whomever that is could be interesting. Could be interesting to see what happens and what that means for Avid customers and particularly Pro Tools users. I suspect that even if there is a new acquiring entity for Avid, I rather suspect that it's going to be business as usual for, you know, the foreseeable short term. So I would say, you know, certainly the first 3 to 5 years, it could just be business as usual. There will be some infrastructure changes internally, inevitably. That happens every time any company is acquired by another company, especially if it's acquired as a wholly owned subsidiary, which I suspect is what will happen in this case. That the acquiring entity will become Avid will become a wholly owned subsidiary of the acquiring entity. I rather suspect that is likely to be what happens, but we're going to have to wait and see. It could be that you have different investors with a different volume of stake in the company. We'll have to wait and see. But be that as it may, yes, there will be changes internally at Avid. That's inevitable. But I rather suspect that from the consumer and customer point of view, not a lot will change. I don't think very much will change for at least the next 4 to 5 years, I would imagine. And then maybe we might see some newer products entering the Avid arena. It's entirely possible. And we may see, I don't know, new integrations with other hardware or other software products for Pro Tools. Again, I'm just speculating, but I should think that it's going to be, 3 to 5 years before we see anything of any significance in terms of actual change to any of the products that Avid produce, including Pro Tools. Talking about this from the perspective of Fender acquiring PreSonus, a lot of people immediately, when it was announced on November the 1st, 2021, that Fender had acquired PreSonus and PreSonus was now a wholly owned subsidiary of Fender, a lot of people panicked and immediately started going, oh, this is the Gibson Cakewalk thing all over again. No, you can't draw that conclusion from an event that happens like that, because there are far too many instances of a company or a corporation acquiring another brand or another company, and it actually ends up being very, very successful. There are loads of those. I'm going to name one just for the sake of brevity, but there are so many instances where it actually works out for the benefit of the subsidiary, its employees, as well as the consumers and end users of those products. And I'm talking about Steinberg. Now, when Steinberg was acquired by Yamaha, yes, there were some changes. Some of them immediately not necessarily very good, but the net result is, and this is like, 20 years now since that happened, Steinberg is still Steinberg. Steinberg didn't automatically just become Yamaha, and Cubase didn't suddenly become Yamaha Cubase, and, there was no complete removal of the development team of Steinberg, Cubase, and Nuendo, and all of that. That didn't happen. So that's a good thing, and it's something that we can look at as this is a good model of how these things happen and how they work well. Yes, there are some examples where it doesn't work very well, where, Gibson purchased Cakewalk and didn't work out very well for them. Didn't work out for Cakewalk, didn't work out very well for Gibson. But here's the thing to bear in mind about this, and that is BandLab acquired all of the assets and the intellectual property of Cakewalk. And they immediately relaunched as a free product as Cakewalk by BandLab. And that's been going for a few years now. And it's actually pretty good. The product itself is actually quite good. But here's the thing that they've just done recently. They have spent a lot of time over these last several years building to something much better. And now they either are about to or they have, I'm not sure which, but I believe they have just launched a brand new paid for version of Sonar. So they've basically, Sonar died, and now it has been risen from the dead by BandLab. And it looks like it could well be a very good thing. And certainly could be pretty competitive. So, sometimes even if something does go disastrously wrong, like Gibson Cakewalk, you have to be able to see a few years down the line. And now here we are, a few years down the line after that. And actually, Sonar has been raised from the dead, and it looks like it's going to be better than it was. So, you know, it's not always the end of the world if something does go wrong in a merger like that. So this is why, to this day, you know, we're, you know, a year and we're, you know, what, 18, 19 months down the road now from Fender acquiring PreSonus. And has much changed? Not really. Not really. You know, we launched Studio One 6, we've launched Studio One 6.1, we've launched Studio One 6.2, we launched Notion Mobile, we've launched a bunch of things in those 18 months. So, and you know, PreSonus is still PreSonus. We have a brand new website. It still says PreSonus on it. So we're still PreSonus. We're still PreSonus Audio Electronics. We're just owned by a parent company called Fender. But we're still doing PreSonus things. We're still by and largely the same team that have been around for more than 27 years. So I only see good things coming, to be really honest. Let's go down and see what we've got. Anyway, that was a wee rant. Sorry about that. Kyle says, Symphony Technology Group, STG, and Francisco Partners are private equity firms competing to acquire media software Avid Technology, according to people familiar with it. Yes. Yeah, those are the two companies. That I was aware of Francisco Partners, which is the company that brought together Native Instruments with Brainworks and Plugin Alliance and all of that. So yeah, I was aware of that. It'll be interesting to see whether you end up with the two companies holding a 50-50 stake in Avid, or whether one outbids the other and Avid becomes part of the Native Instruments thing. That will be interesting to see. Billy says, never a reason to go back. Absolutely. I heard the same company bought iZotope. Yes, iZotope is part of the Native Instruments and Plugin Alliance. Basically, those three companies all came together to form something called Soundwise, I think last year. And then Francisco, and that they were all purchased by Francisco Partners. And then what happened was they all decided to fold everything into Native Instruments. So now you have Plugin Alliance by Native Instruments, you have iZotope by Native Instruments. And eventually all of those will just become Native Instruments. So everything that is Plugin Alliance, I suspect, and everything that is iZotope will eventually just become Native Instruments. So I think that's probably where it's going to go. And so if you have those three software brands, along with Avid and its ecosystem all coming together, that could be pretty powerful. That could be quite disruptive, I think, to the audio industry. That could be quite exciting to observe. Dave Bops NY says, keep in mind Avid was big gun in digital video production. Yeah, DigiDesign was the company that Avid acquired. And DigiDesign had video editing software, and they also had Pro Tools. So we all think of Avid, you know, we all call it Avid Pro Tools. But guess what? Originally it wasn't. It was DigiDesign Pro Tools. And then it was purchased. And originally, the way that worked was actually Avid were a client of DigiDesign. I'm not sure that all of you knew that, but originally Avid was a client of DigiDesign, and they built things for DigiDesign, and then the client purchased the company, and the rest is kind of history, really. Let's see. Mike says, I have Cakewalk by BandLab. I switched to Studio One, of course, but still have Cakewalk. Yes, most of the people I know that switched to Studio One still have BandLab. They still have Cakewalk kicking around. Tony says, whatever happened to Jim Odom? Jim Odom is still at Presonus. It's his company. Presonus is his company. He founded it back in 1995 in his garage. And so he is still overseeing Presonus. He is the life president of Presonus. And his title now is Vice President of Presonus Products. So basically, his position is oversight over all Presonus products. And he is particularly involved with hardware product development and engineering. So those are kind of his main things. So he still gets his hands dirty, even though, Fender bought his company. He's still very much involved and still gets his hands dirty in the engineering department. So it's still pretty cool. Ambient Dave says, as a fan of Isotope, it was a surprise to me to hear that they have become Native Instruments. More power to the consumer. Definitely more power to consumer. Tim says, I still can't activate Studio One on my M2 MacBook Pro. Refresh Studio One Plus and completely uninstalled and reinstalled. Still odd. Yeah, Tim, please make a support ticket if you haven't done already. Because, see, you and I were chatting on Facebook, and I had you do a few things. And then I didn't hear from you again, so I didn't know what had worked and what hadn't worked, unfortunately. So now you're telling me that you still can't activate. So it may well be that your credentials are balked. I suspect that is what might have happened, is in the process of the new updates that we put out just recently to the authorization process. It's possible that your credentials have just got balked. So please make a support ticket, and I will personally ensure that you get taken care of. It won't be me that will be handling your ticket though. But I will make sure that you get sorted out. For sure. Let's see. Dave is talking to Bobby Booth. He says, I'm a greenhorn of Studio One, been about 3 years now, really enjoying the ride as a hobbyist. Dave, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you are part of this little community, and I'm glad you're enjoying using Studio One and that you've been doing so for 3 years. That's awesome. This is my 10th year with Presonus Products and Studio One. And it's been a heck of a ride. In 2013, when I sold a snare drum to get Studio One, right? This is how much this meant to me to do it, because I was so angry at Steinberg, and Cubase for, what was happening with Cubase 6.5, I think it was. Or it might have been 6.3. I can't remember. But it's Cubase 6 point something. I can't remember which one that was in 2013. But anyway, it was Cubase 6 point something. And it was the most unstable thing I had ever seen from Steinberg. And I had been using Cubase all the way since version 1. And even before that, when I had Pro 24 on an Atari ST. And I had the very first version of Cubase on Atari ST as well. So I'd been using Cubase for, nigh on nearly 30 years at that point. And this was the most unstable thing that I think they had ever released. And I was so PO'd about it. I sold a snare drum, which was a very rare custom snare drum made by Pearl. And I really wasn't playing it anymore. And so I sold it so that I could get Studio One. And I cancelled my Steinberg account. I don't have a Steinberg account anymore. I don't have installers. I don't have any Steinberg products anymore. And I sold that snare drum so I could get Studio One too. Little did I realize that in 10 years' time, I would actually be working for Presonus. That's just, to me, that's wild. I never dreamt that in my wildest imaginings that I would end up working for the company. And now here we are, and I love my job. It's a dream job. It really is. I'm doing what I do every day for customers like you guys. I love it. It's the best thing I think I have ever done. And I've done a lot of pretty cool things in my 48 years. I've done some exceedingly cool, very, very exciting things. But I got to say, I think my job at PreSonus caps the lot. I love it. It's awesome. And they're a great company to work for. Let's see. Ambient Dave says, thank you, means a lot for me. You're very welcome, mate. Mike Rowell says, I'm loving Studio One, just a couple of months using it. Well, that's awesome. And he goes, but it just works. Everything works. Still a noob, but I'm loving it. That's great to hear, Mike. And I'm glad you're loving it. And, you know, here I am 10 years in, been using Studio One every single day, from Studio One 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and whatever versions come out in the future. You're absolutely right. It just works. It's incredibly stable. It's incredibly reliable. Yeah, some builds are better than others, and some builds are more stable than others. You're going to get that in any software. You'll get that with Pro Tools. You get that with Cubase. You'll get that with Reaper. You'll get that with Logic. Because there is no such thing as a perfect build for any software. So you'll get some that are really great and then some that are maybe not quite so great. But that's just how software development goes. But if I was to compare my 10 years of Studio One use with my 30 years, or nearly 30 years, of Cubase use, these 10 years have been way better than those nearly 30 years. For sure. Absolutely. I would, no question about it. Let's see. Carl says, now look at me. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I have a room full of PreSonus gear. And I have a garage full of PreSonus gear as well, which I can't talk about. Amy Dave says, well said, appreciate all the help, just need more time off work to play make more noise. You know what? I couldn't agree more. And to be honest, this is one of the reasons why I'm very thankful that I don't require a lot of sleep. I sleep for maybe 5 hours on average every night. After that, ping, I'm wide awake. So even if I go to bed early, if I go to bed at like 9 o'clock, I'm up 5 hours later. And there's nothing I can do about it. I'm up at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm wide awake. That's me. I'm ready to start my day. So I've learned, go to bed at 3 o'clock, get up at, 6 o'clock. Get up at nearly 9 o'clock, which is actually when I get up. I get up like 8:30. So if I'm in bed at 2:30, I get up at 8:30, no trouble. No problem at all. Not everybody can work like that. I can. I've been doing it since I was about 17. Whether that means I'm going to have a foreshortened life or not, I don't know. Because I know that on average, most people require, 8-9 hours of sleep. That's not me. I just have a very, very overactive brain, for sure. So, I'll wake up at like, if I go to bed early, if I went to bed at 9 o'clock, I would be up at like 2 o'clock and my brain would be like wired. My brain would be going music, 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 music. And then I'd have to come in here at 2 o'clock in the morning to start working on something because my brain was just, So that's kind of how I work, really. Let's see. Ticket created, says Tim. Good. We'll get to that as soon as we possibly can. For sure. The tech support guys are the best in the business. Let me tell you that right now. The PreSonus tech support team, for software and for hardware, they are the best in the business. I have worked with other tech support agents in other companies for various reasons, and I can tell you, the PreSonus tech support guys for software and hardware are the best in the business. I have profound respect for those guys. They are experts. They are scientists. They are the smartest people around. And, when they are busy, yes, it takes you a wee bit longer to get a response from them. It might take you 24, 36, sometimes 48 hours to get a response from them. But, you know, that's what happens when a lot of people are making a lot of support tickets. And, you know, around about a new release, like, you know, 6.1.2 that only came out just last week, you know, a lot of people make support tickets. There's a lot of support tickets for all sorts of things going on at the moment. And so, you know, it does take them a wee bit longer to get through that and get to your ticket. So, you know, just because you haven't heard from tech support in 24 hours, don't think that you're being ignored, because you're not. You're absolutely not. The industry standard for tech support, I think, is a 48-hour turnaround from you submitting the ticket to getting a first response from a tech support agent. You will get an initial response, which is an automated response that basically says, hey, thank you for submitting your support ticket. We've received your support ticket. An agent will be assigned to it ASAP. You'll get that. So you will get an initial response from us immediately, right? But it may take a wee while for a tech support agent to actually get your ticket and have it assigned to them, and for them to read through what you've said and test what you've presented them with, and then give you an initial response from an agent. It may take a little while, but don't think that you're being ignored, and don't think that you are not going to get an answer from a human being, because you will. Okay? There's no AI involved. There's no bots involved. Okay? You get human tech support agents. There are other companies that have bots. There are other companies that have AI that will send out autoresponders left, right, and center. We don't do that. We actually sit and type. Okay? That's what they do. So that's how tech support works at Presonus. So don't think you're being ignored just because you've not had an initial response after, you know, 36, 48 hours. But once you've had engagement from the agent, they will work very quickly to get your issue fixed. My God, Kyle, that is hysterically funny. That's just too funny. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, please look at Kyle's post around about 7:02. That's hilarious. All right, Billy Morgan is saying New Orleans Studio One meetup is coming up. So he's put a link in there right now. So everybody, head over there now. We're finishing up the show here. Head over there now. Go get joined. Go get involved. It will be a fantastic thing. So please do that. We've got 22 people here right now, around about 24, 25. So if every single one of you could do two things for me, I'd be immensely grateful. Number one, please hit like and subscribe and the notification bell. That's step one. Step two, get yourself over to the New Orleans meetup that Billy is hosting. It's his first time hosting, and it'd be great to go and show him some love and some support. So please go ahead and do that. I'm going to be over there, so if you've got further Studio One questions, I know Ron said that he does, get those talked about. Bring those up, and we can talk about those. I'm not working tomorrow, so I'm going to stick around for a wee bit longer, okay? So I will be over there. Come join me over there, and it'll be great. It'll be fantastic fun. So thanks a lot, everybody, for coming tonight. Have a great rest of your week. Hope to see you over at the New Orleans Studio One meetup, like now. But other than that, I'll see you on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplify, where we will go through that song that I wrote called Aya's Lullaby, and I'll show you how I kind of did all the orchestral arrangements and stuff. And then I can take your songwriting, arranging, composing, and music theory questions then. So until then, folks, have a great night. I'll see you over at the meetup. Good night. New Orleans, meet up now. Go. Goodbye.